going on, guys? It's your boy. Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be doing an episode of Unfiltered Talks, and today's video is going to be so all over the place, so unorthodox, and even more like weird and all over the place than my videos usually are, because as you can see, I am not where I typically record my videos, and I currently am standing up, which is very not normal for me. I usually record my videos sitting down in a chair so that I could actually like focus on what I'm doing, and instead today I'm going to be probably pacing around, and you're going to see a lot of like hand movements and everything going all over the place. But today, what are we here to talk about, you might be asking? Well, to that I say, did you read the title? Because we're going to be talking about a couple years from now, the grand old year of 2026. There's a lot of movies that are kind of slated to be coming out around that time, and a lot of them are really weird, a little interesting, and kind of concerning, to be honest. So today I'm just going to be talking about the future state of movies. I'm going to talk about a couple of upcoming projects that are going to be kind of starting to come to fruition in 2026, and basically, I just kind of wanted to talk about how I think cinema is going to be really interesting, because there are some fun projects coming out in 2026, and then there are some weird project coming out in 2026. So let's dive into this. Okay, so for starters, I do kind of want to start off by talking about some of the more exciting things that are coming out in 2026. So for one of the biggest things is Star Wars is finally going to be back in theaters. The Mandalorian and Grogu movie that's supposed to be coming out is currently in the works. I feel like, I'm pretty sure like they just recently got a lot of writers and stuff on board, and they're working on the script now, which is fantastic. And it's really cool to me that they're going to be turning basically season 4 of The Mandalorian and turning it into a movie, giving it a full movie budget and a big theatrical release. I think it's going to be fantastic. And as somebody who hasn't watched a whole lot of Star Wars, but has started the Mandalorian series, I've only watched the first season so far. I'm catching up, okay? I'm working on it. But I think that it's a huge step that they're like, okay, we really trust these characters. People are really liking this stuff on Disney+. Let's finally get them back into the theater. And I think that Star Wars on its own has so much weird, interesting things going on, because for one, they have that movie that's supposed to come out in 2026. They're working on a movie that takes place about 2,500 years beforehand, whenever the Force first came into existence. That's something that's coming on. I think James Mangold is supposed to be directing that movie. That one, I believe, just got a writer, so that one probably isn't going to be coming out until maybe 2027. And then there's this movie that's coming out with Rey, Daisy Ridley's character, and it's supposed to take place about like 40 years or something like that after the last Star Wars movie that took place, and it's supposed to be her training a bunch of young Jedis and stuff like that, and I think that's really interesting. Okay, sorry for the awkward cut there. My dogs kind of started going crazy. But basically, to talk about the Star Wars slate, I just think it's really interesting that these movies are finally going to be back in theaters. Because like I said, Star Wars hasn't had a movie out in theaters until the last Star Wars movie that came out. I think it was The Return of the Jedi or The Last Jedi or something like that. And that movie came out in 2019. And for people who aren't keeping track, that was 5 years ago now. And people like me, who were just finally starting to get into Star Wars because it's a lot. You have so many movies you need to catch up on. You have an entire animated series that's like 7 seasons long that you need to catch up on. It's a lot of lore, and it's really hard for people to try to like palate it if you've never watched a single Star Wars thing ever. So I'm finally getting into it, and I'm really excited that there are finally going to be movies out in theaters in 2026. And I know that people who are big diehard Star Wars fans have been looking forward to Star Wars in theaters for a pretty long time. And I know that some of the old ones are going to be doing like re-releases and stuff like that. Like, I don't remember which one it is, but there's going to be one in theaters for its 25th anniversary or something like that soon, which is very exciting. But I just think it's really interesting that Star Wars is finally coming back in full force. But I also think it's weird. They have 3 different movies that seem to be taking place in 3 different kind of time periods, and I'm really intrigued to see if they're even going to try to connect these movies or if they're going to leave them be and let them be separate things. But that being said, that was all that I wanted to talk about the Star Wars side of things. We're going to switch over to something I'm a little more familiar with. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about a little bit of superhero stuff. Part of the reason why I am making this video right now, the day that I am making this video, is they released that they are going to be making a rated R Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. I'm incredibly excited about this one. It's going to be based off of the story from the Last Ronin comic books. If you haven't read it, I totally would recommend it. I think it is my favorite Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles anything that's ever existed. Mutant Mayhem that came out last year was pretty good. There's other TV shows that I really liked as a kid, and for the most part, I was always a big fan of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, especially when they have their like lighthearted, fun little jokes and like, you know, they're teens messing around with each other. But I think that this Last Ronin story does a really interesting job of showcasing the lone survivor and how it really messes with your mentality. And on top of that, it does a really good job of kind of like being this mystery as to like which one of the brothers is it, why are they going through all this hardship, and seeing how much they've changed over time, because like mourning people and losing people can really affect somebody's mental health. And I think that it's going to be a very deep story. It's going to be very nitty and gritty, and the comic is very brutal. I feel like there's a really huge death toll in it. Like, you watch a lot of people get murdered in the movie, and it's a really great revenge plot that has the potential to be like a John Wick level movie if they do it right. And I'm incredibly excited to see that they are going to be taking a crack at it. It's going to be rated R. It's going to be live action, obviously, with like a CGI main character. And I'm incredibly excited about it. I really want to know what they're going to do with this movie. They finally have a writer on board for it. And like I said, it's supposed to be rated R, which I don't think I could have ever predicted that they would make a movie like this storyline. And I didn't think that they would ever do a rated R Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. But I'm incredibly excited that it's happening. And I'm really excited because they're also, for people who do not know this, The Last Ronin, there's supposed to be a PlayStation game for it. And I bought a PlayStation 5 exclusively for that game whenever it comes out, and for the Spider-Man 2 game. And I finished Spider-Man 2 finally, so I'm like, okay, whenever The Last Ronin comes out, I'm gonna play it. But I realized I'm not good at playing games with story modes and doing it consistently, so I was like, I'm not gonna enjoy this story as much as I would if it was a movie. So I'm glad that they're making it a movie. I'm incredibly excited. It's gonna be great, and I think it's gonna be a cool rated R movie. And I'm gonna make this prediction now. 2 years before the movie comes out, there's a good chance that this movie is going to break records for the highest grossing rated R movie of all time. That being said, Deadpool 3 is coming out this year, which has a great chance of breaking that record, and Joker Folie à Deux is coming out this year. That also has a decent chance of breaking that record. Currently, the record holder, for people who do not know, is the first Joker movie. It's the only rated R movie to ever hit $1 billion. And for reference, last year Oppenheimer got around like 890K or something like that. And that is pretty high for rated R movies. So that being said, that's one of the main things I want to talk about with superhero stuff. But obviously, Marvel versus DC, currently right now, it doesn't seem like much of a competition. Last year, the DCEU put out 4 movies, and all 4 of them were not on the same level as Marvel for the most part. I think Blue Beetle was really good, but a lot of people didn't see Blue Beetle. And Marvel last year put out some really good movies. We had Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. We had I'm blanking on the name right now, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, 2 really great superhero movies that kind of reminded people of why we like the superhero genre, and it kind of reminded a lot of people of why James Gunn being the new lead of the DC universe is going to be pretty huge. The guy never misses. I think that he's put out 4 different superhero movies. Oh, wait, no. He's put out 5 different superhero things. He put out The Suicide Squad, which in my opinion was the best DCEU movie. He put out the Peacemaker TV show, which I think it's great, but I will admit, I don't think it's as good as people said it was. A lot of people were like, this is the greatest superhero show of all time. And I'm like, I watched it. It's pretty good. I would not necessarily say it's one of the best superhero shows of all time, because like the CW Arrow show, season 5, in my opinion, is really good. Daredevil, Netflix, once again, really good. So it's kind of hard to compare it to those. And in my opinion, now Loki, season 1 and season 2 are also incredible in comparison. But that being said, James Gunn also has the 3 Guardians movies, which I would argue all 3 of them could be debatably in the top 10 MCU movies of all time. So, really excited for Superman Legacy, which is supposed to come out next year. Except for, surprise, it's not called Legacy, it's called just Superman. I forgot about that. They changed it. But yeah, that's supposed to come out next year. The Batman 2 with Robert Pattinson is actually being moved back to 2026 to get me back on topic. 2026, the superhero movies that we're supposed to have from Marvel and DC, I think we're getting 2 Batman movies in the same year. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure Batman the Brave and the Bold, which is the DCU version, is coming out 2026. And I think that the Robert Pattinson Batman movie is supposed to also come out in 2026, which is going to be great. And then on the Marvel side of things, not entirely sure. I think Blade is technically supposed to come out that year. And then we still have no idea what other Marvel movies are supposed to come out that year, because originally I think there was supposed to be Avengers 5 that year. That's probably not happening. But yeah, that being said, that was all I wanted to talk about the superhero stuff. Now we're going to talk about some of the really weird things that are happening in Hollywood right now. Okay, now I only have like 4 more movies that I want to talk about. There's the entire like weird Pooh, Blood and Honey universe that's going on. I think that their like Avengers level assembled thing at the end is supposed to take place it's supposed to come out in 2026, but I do not want to address those films right now because I think that the first one was terrible. It was kind of like not gonna say it was like a money-making scheme, but for people who do not know, that movie was incredibly low budget, and they purposely put it into theaters where the ticket prices were higher, and they made it where a lot of people also had to be patrons for whatever their film company was to go see the movie. So the original movie made a bunch of money, and it was not a high quality movie. It was really terrible, and a lot of people were really outraged with it online. But then they came out with Pooh, Blood and Honey Part 2 this year, and a lot of people who watch horror films or are actually fans of horror films have said it's a lot higher quality. All of the creatures look incredibly scary and intimidating, and for the most part the plot is pretty solid. Like I said, I haven't seen it, I don't care to see it, but that weird universe that they have going on there is supposed to come out, like that final movie is supposed to come out in 2026, so I thought I would address that. But now to talk about the elephants in the room, and by the elephants I mean Margot Robbie. I don't know how I was going to do a segue there, so instead I just mentioned an elephant and then brought up Margot Robbie. There was no correlation there, but basically she is currently working on a lot of producing stuff right now, and a couple of movies that are supposed to be coming out in 2026 are the Sims movie, I believe, is supposed to come out 2026. It might be 2027 at this point because I don't know how far along they are in production, and they haven't been making a bunch of updates about it since Margot Robbie originally came out and said that she's part of producing for it. And then the other movie that is recently being talked about that a lot of people are like, oh my god, this is an interesting movie, Monopoly is getting a movie. And on top of that, I think that there's also a Hot Wheels movie that's supposed to be happening, and I think that there's a Uno movie that's coming out as well. So that's 5 movies that are coming out based off of toys. And I don't want to say anything, but I think that people are learning the wrong lesson from the Barbie movie. So, for people who don't know, obviously the Barbie movie came out last year, was the highest grossing movie of the entire year, got a bunch of Oscar nominations, and a lot of people kind of looked at it as, oh my god, it's this movie about dolls. It's a little bit more than that. It's a little more political than that, and there's a really good, like, feminist, side of the story, and, there's a lot of really good, like, undertones and stuff like that, and a lot of really good lessons to learn about how tough it is being a woman and stuff like that with that movie. I'm not going to dive too far into it, but that movie had a lot of heart to it. It had Greta Gerwig, who's an incredible director, behind it, and it had a lot of people who had an actual message to share with that movie. And a lot of companies like Mattel were like, oh my god, we can just make movies about our toys. And for one, it'll work because it'll make money in the box office because it's a really cool movie and people are going to be so curious about it that they'll go and watch it. And for two, they can make toys based off of the movies that are about toys, and then they'll sell even more toys. So I think that Mattel getting their hands on a film studio, not great, and I think that it's going to potentially be really bad. And I think that another thing that's really interesting though is Margot Robbie is connecting to some of these movies. So I'm like, I think that there's a chance that they'll be a little bit better, but I'm really concerned about what a Monopoly movie will look like, and I'm really concerned about what the movie about Uno or Hot Wheels is going to look like. The main reason I'm concerned about the Hot Wheels one, I'm going to address it right now. I think that movie's weird because they said it's going to be a live action. And as much as I think that that's cool that it's going to be a live action, I think that it would be a really, really cool animated movie if they put a really high budget into it, kind of like Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, and they had it be like this really big movie that's kind of like the old Cars movies, because that would be pretty epic. A lot of people would really like it, and I think that there's so much potential there, but making it live action is weird, and I don't know how I'm going to feel about that one until we start getting trailers and more announcements and stuff like that. And then, like I said, with the Monopoly one, once again, don't have any idea what the story is going to be. A lot of people are saying it's going to be secretly a big political movie about capitalism versus socialism and stuff like that. I don't know if they'll go that far, but potentially it could be. And with Margot Robbie being on it, I do feel like it's going to be a little bit more serious, but I'm concerned. So that being said, those are some of the main things I wanted to talk about. Sonic has been, supposedly they're saying after this trilogy is over that they're going to start doing like Avengers level threats and stuff like that, and he's going to start dealing with some of the more absurd things that he does in the games, which some people were kind of complaining about, but I'm like, Sonic basically is a god in the video games. Like, the Golden Sonic stuff and, like, all the lore with the Golden Sonic stuff is really interesting. So, I think that stuff like that with, like, the Sims 4, the Sims game or whatever that's coming out, superhero movies might be stepping aside to make way for video game adaptations, because Fallout came out, for people who don't know, that's an Amazon Plus TV show, whatever. I started watching it. So far, it's pretty good. The Last of Us came out last year. won a bunch of Emmys. Super Mario Bros. Broke record for animated movies. It's a pretty big deal. Video game movies are starting to kind of make waves and make forces here. So that's really interesting. But yeah, I think that that's everything I wanted to touch on. There's obviously a lot of other movies that are probably coming out in 2026 that I don't even know about yet. But that being said, I touched on all the big ones that I wanted to talk about. And I appreciate you guys so much for coming by, sticking with me. Hopefully I didn't pace around too much. Hopefully I didn't do a bunch of fidgeting that is going to be terrible for you guys watching. And I will hopefully see you guys in the next one if you liked it. I'm going to head out now. Peace out. Bow, bow, bow.
Back at it again, but that's a relevant flow. So smooth, they calling me Mr. Elegant. Like an elephant, I got a long nose. Like a president, I've got a few hoes. Swift with a stutter, I'm smooth like butter. Don't see it coming when I slip undercover. Like a big dog, but I don't bite. I'm still a big broad, I'd win that fight. Come match you and I knock out your lights.